Are G-Wagons as ridiculously expensive to maintain as most people tell you? In this video, I'm joined with Joe, the G-Wagon expert here at Alliance Auto Care. We're in his shop and we're talking about what it will actually cost to maintain a G-Wagon. Watch this video all the way through if you're someone who's interested in purchasing a G-Wagon or if you already have one. If you end up buying the wrong G-Wagon and get a molested specimen from an auction site or something else, you could be into a massive money pit. So let's rock and roll. My name's Adam, host of the G-Wheelin' channel and a G-Wagon enthusiast. I do this for the love of G. Joe, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Joe Gocher, Alliance Auto Care. Let's get into this. So the big question is, what does it actually cost to maintain and repair these trucks? So we're going to use this as an example. This is a 2015 G63. This
Peyton's. We've been wheeling in this one.
Yep, Peyton's. We've seen this G in here a couple of times, and he takes really good care of it. So this is actually a really good example of someone who, uses the truck as a daily driver. He wheels it, he has fun with it. If something goes wrong, picks up the phone, calls us. So the truck has roughly 100,000 miles on it. It's not a low mileage queen, and it does get used. Currently, it's in here today for some power steering leaks. And we've got a hood latch that doesn't work, and we've got some doors that aren't opening. So, pretty minor stuff. But the big one is a power steering leak. So this is a good example of what it takes to actually get to some of these items. We had to pull the grill, had to pull the lights to access all the hoses. It turns out it was just a couple of hoses that started to kind of get dry over time and just get a little fatigued. So
Which is common, like for old vehicles, those are the things that fail.
Totally.
It's just, I've heard from other Mercedes techs that have blown up the comment section saying these things are a pain to work on because everything's so tight. So is that why headlight assembly is out and the grill's pulled apart?
That's a super good question, actually. Yes, things are tight, but as long as you have the mentality that everything has a logic and reason and methodology of how it goes together and comes apart, it's not that bad. Everything is a process. So as long as you understand that A has to go before B and B has to go before C, not a big deal. So this is one of those things, it's more labor than anything. It's a couple of small parts here and there, but at the end of the day, he's going to be back on the road. We'll see him again for his next service. It's not the end of the world. Something like this, between the power steering repair, the hood latch situation is just a cable that's stretched out. We've got some rear doors where the plastic lock rod retainers inside the doors fell off. It's a couple $1,000 to get all that squared away with the labor. We're also doing a rear bumper light upgrade at the same time. That's $1,200. So it adds up over time. But this is one of those things, we haven't seen the truck in for a major repair in quite a while. So a lot of its maintenance. This is actually its first big repair.
So let's break it down. We have another video coming soon, by the way, on a year-by-year breakdown to purchase a G-Wagon, what to look for when you inspect one. And there's a link in the description for the ultimate buyers and build guide for the G-Wagon. So check that out right now. Click the link in the description. Let's get back to this video. There's different engine variations. Naturally aspirated, this one has 2 turbos, it's a bi-turbo engine.
Correct. This is the G63 AMG. Yeah. So it's a 5.5 liter bi-turbo motor, 560 horsepower, tons of power, tons of torque, tons of good stuff.
Do you find big maintenance things between the model years of what it, because I want to break this into 2 separate topics of discussion. There's maintenance costs and then there's repair costs. So maintenance is keeping your vehicle on the road that you can expect to do with any vehicle. You run a diesel too to haul stuff around. You do an oil change at a Ford dealer when I had an F350 dually. It was like $350, $400 compared to a $20 oil change at a Quick Lube. So I'd love to first talk routine maintenance, and then let's discuss like when things go wrong, what are the common things and what should people budget for as a rough estimate to keep their G healthy and on the road?
Good point. Okay. Depending on where you go, plan on budgeting. We're going to use routine maintenance. So your 5,000 mile service, you go in for oil change and filters and possibly tire rotation. Expect $300. Period, end story. There's going to be places that get you in and out for $250. There's going to be places that get you out for $350. By the time you factor in all your filters, the time to swap everything, the full inspection, all the fluids, running high quality, correct oil, it adds up. So expect around that. And with that, tire rotation, full inspection as well. Other things to keep in mind are brakes. They are expensive. And it does change if you've got an AMG versus a naturally aspirated model. So we're going to use this for example. AMG, they do have giant rotors and giant pads, and they are soft rotors and they are hard pads, meaning they wear out at the same time.
And these trucks are not light.
No.
They're what, about
5,500 pounds, somewhere there. They're not light. For AMG, figure, I think you're right about $1,200 for the front and a little bit less for the rear. I think you're $800 for the
pads,
rear.
rotors?
Pads, rotors, sensors, hardware.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap. There are certainly more expensive options out there, but you're getting full-on Brembo stuff all the way through. The other thing to consider, if you have a 550 with smaller brakes or 500 smaller brakes, you're much less. You're give or take $600 an axle. So it does go considerably less for the non-AMG models. So it's just one of those things you pay to play and get the higher performance.
Which in any German vehicle, when you want performance, you're going to pay for it.
Totally.
And people that are going to compare this, oh, well, I could get a Jeep. You could, but you're comparing a peach to a French fry.
Yeah.
Like they're not apples to apples here.
Jeeps are always going to be cheaper.
Always. Aftermarket's bigger, and you're not stopping as much weight. You don't have a V8 unless you're in a 392.
Brakes are a tricky one, yeah, because people always say my Toyota costs X, my Jeep costs Y. You're not dealing with giant Brembo stuff. You're not dealing with better technology. That's the root cause of it there.
So we got oil change, we got brakes.
Brakes.
Your consumables. Obviously, tires are tires. They're not that magic of
You're
a
right.
size.
There's a couple more things to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So when we talk about maintenance, so let's go through your 50,000 mile maintenance and your 100,000 mile maintenance. So your 50,000 mile maintenance is what we call all your gearbox services. So you've got your transmission, you've got your transfer case, your front differential, and your rear differential. So 4 total. With that, it's nothing more than glorified fluid changes. Everything drain and fills. The transmission, you do want to kind of cycle the old stuff through. But again, every 50,000 miles, do it, and it should last the life of the vehicle. I have yet to see a transmission fail on a G-Wagon under 278,000 miles.
278,000.
That is the running total.
You know what's, doesn't that crack you up? People are like, oh, it's a Mercedes. 278,000 miles. Not to throw shade at any particular vehicle, my dad had a Ford F-150 that needed a transmission at 60,000 miles.
I know, and hey, this was a 2000 G500, and it actually still drove. It just, fourth gear was a little soft.
Who needs fourth?
Yeah, go to fifth, right? So change it every 50,000 miles. Just get it done. Don't look back. Just factor it as part of your cost. Usually ballpark, per gearbox, I think we're right about 150, 200 bucks somewhere there. So 150, 200, or call it 200 just for round number and inflation's sake. So 2, and then the transmission comes out to about, on the early ones, you're about 600 bucks. On the later ones, you can be $900 to $1,000 because there is something they call an adaptation. So if your transmission starts shifting kind of weird as your truck ages, i.e. it shifts too soft or it's getting harsh, we can actually plug into it. It takes about 2 hours. We can go through and reset all the adaptations on it and kind of bring it back into line there.
Basically a TCU tune.
Totally, yeah.
Sweet. So cooling systems, I know that's a thing.
Hang on, we didn't get to the 100,000 mile.
We didn't get there yet, did we?
No.
Then we'll hit cooling systems.
And that's part of the 100,000. So at 100K, we do flush the coolant. I know they always say check the pH and go for it. If the pH is off prior to 100, we'll go ahead and dump it just because you don't want it corroding. But at 100K, dump it. So we flush everything out of there. The other thing is spark plugs. It's still a gas motor, right? So you just pull the old spark plugs out, put new ones in, and away you go. Usually right around 100,000, we start seeing other little things go wrong. Like we start seeing coolant leaks, or we start seeing little oil leaks here and there. On the later models, it's usually not a big deal. It's directly serviceable in and out in a day is what I like to say. So usually 8 hours or less of actual labor time on the motor. It's usually some gaskets, some seals. Very rarely do we see major hard parts go wrong with these. It's just rubber parts at that point.
Yeah.
So easy done.
Yeah, piece of cake. Well, we just covered the coolant piece. So to answer the question, your opinion, are G-Wagons ridiculously expensive to keep on the road, yes or no?
Nope.
And why do you say that?
Bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Yes, it costs money to maintain these and fix these things, but you fix them less frequently. At the end of the day, you're still maintaining a $100,000 vehicle that feels every bit
100 plus.
$100,000 vehicle, but it still feels every bit as tight and fresh as it did from the day it was new. Versus, I have a lot of disheartening when you're paying big money to put your Toyota or your Jeep back together, and at the end of the day, it still drives like a clapped out trash can.
Yeah, that's true, and I'm sure we upset somebody. I just talked to someone who's actually a fan of the G-Wheeling channel, and he reached out. He said, hey, he emailed me, and he says, hey, I'm looking to buy a G. I actually put him in touch with you to bring his build to life. But his question was like, is this so expensive? You know, which model year do I get? What's best for me? Which we will get to in a video very soon. But his biggest issue is he currently has a Toyota Tacoma that is done up to the beyond belief, and he says it drives terribly. I don't like it. My wife doesn't like being in it. And how's the G drive? And we drive mine, which is right behind you, and I'll do 6 hours out to Moab and then go wheeling the same day for 4 or 5 hours. We did that 3 days in a row. And I will say, on day 3, I was starting to get a little sore. But we did some pretty rowdy stuff, and it took a long time to get to that point.
That was really good, yeah. It boils down to ride quality, comfort. These are non-fatiguing vehicles to drive, meaning you can drive them to the trailhead, you can enjoy them, you can take them out to dinner, and you don't have to think about it. You can't do that with a Jeep. You can't do that with the big lifted Toyota. You always got to trailer it just because it's exhausting or dangerous to drive on the freeway. So that's really where these come to life.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, the G-Wagon is not crazy expensive to maintain. What you're going to pay more for is labor, finding a great shop. I mean, if you're local or even if you want to send your vehicle to Alliance, they'll do frame off restoration to routine maintenance, oil changes, everything in between. And then obviously getting to the things.
Yep.
So you're going to pay a little bit more in labor. Parts inherently for any German vehicle is not cheap. I remember when I was driving an Audi Q7, it's like I needed brakes. It was front brakes, and I was like, I got a quote for $2,200, and I was used to driving American trucks, and I was like, $2,200 for brakes, and then I was like, oh, it's just the
Got to play the game, right?
The way it goes. So you got to pay to play.
Yeah. There's a certain value in there. Having it done right, having it done once.
Yeah.
What's most expensive is paying to have it done twice.
Yeah.
So that's really important. Whether you can see us or you have a local facility that takes care of your trucks, make sure they are intimately familiar with your trucks so that you're in and out quickly, efficiently, and you're only paying once.
Yeah. And when you are searching for a used one, which we're doing another video on this very shortly, it is really important, and tell me if you agree, because Joe, you helped me bring 2 trucks to life. Actually, the first one I got before I met you, that's how I met you. Second one I got, Joe helped me find, because you're actually watching Bring a Trailer auction with me to help. Like, this guy goes above and beyond. It was awesome. He's like, I don't know. And then I sent him other ones. But when you're looking through the Carfax, owner history doesn't matter as much as service records. And if you find someone who's taken care of their vehicle in a reputable shop, like, you'll know. I remember I was looking at LR4s, and LR4s, what's the main thing? Is it the timing chain, the engines blow up, there's a few other things.
Yeah, late model, you name it.
You name it. Anyway, so I'm looking at LR4s, and every used one, I look at the Carfax, and it's like, in the shop, 1,000 miles later, in the shop, 1,000 miles later, in the shop, timing chain issue. I can't even remember
Air suspension, chassis stuff.
All of the same faults over and over. And then you go look at G-Wagons in general, at their history, and most of those things are going to show evidence of themselves in their first 3 years of ownership for service work. So when you find one that was taken care of, it's a good indicator that you're in a good spot versus finding one that is like 70 or 17 owners and it's got big street wheels and they did some stupid cosmetic stuff to make it look new, and you just know that's a different kind of buyer.
Yeah, and actually that's a good point. I'm glad you touched on that. The background of us is we're also a full service facility for all major European brands. So we service Range Rover, Jag, Porsche, Audi, etc. And one of the key things that my team and I really love about Mercedes and the G-Wagon in particular is when it comes in with a problem, let's say it comes in with a check engine light or we've got an oil leak, we know that when we go through and we actually perform the needed repair correctly with all the right parts, all the right manpower, and it's put together as a solid repair, we know it's not going to come back for that repair. That's one of the reasons we tend to gravitate toward these trucks, and we have zero hesitation of taking them out, especially after we repair them, is we know they're going to work.
Yeah.
Whereas, like Adam said, we do work on a lot of British, we work on a lot of other German brands, and we know that, yes, we did this repair. It's probably going to come back in the next 18 months with a similar type of problem. Not any fault of our own or another shop or whatever. It's just that it is a badly designed part or product.
Yeah.
So that plays into it majorly.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning in. If you're interested in purchasing a G, upgrading a G, building a G, or doing some aftermarket work, then you need to check out the Ultimate Buyers and Build Guide that Joe helped me put together. And there's a link in the description. Check it out now. Subscribe to the channel and jump into this next one. YouTube thinks you're really going to love it. We'll see you soon.